Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome Katie Bode back to the podcast to talk about Disney's big Christmas week release of 1972, Snowball Express. Welcome back, Katie.
Yay, thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Katie, you were on the last episode of 2020. And now you're on the first episode of 2023. This is dropping on your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
January 6th, a day that's only known for your birthday.
That's right. It's a very important special day for me and no one else.
Nothing has happened on that day except for Katie Bode coming into the world.
Actually, it's also the Epiphany, which is the day the wise men got there to see the baby Jesus.
Okay, two things.
So, insurrection.
Oh, that's
baby Jesus. And my birthday.
And your birthday. So
Thank
we're recording this in mid-December, but this is dropping on Friday, January 6th. It's the first episode of the new year. But as we always do on Film at 50, the month of January, we do kind of a wrap up of a couple Christmas releases, and then we end the whole year with the end of January season finale episode where we're talking the Academy Awards, and that'll be the last episode where we talk the films of 1972, and then we go right into the films of 1973. Starting in February. So before we wrap up the 72 movies, we had to get to Snowball Express, Katie. This is a very important film that everyone's talking about, like 50 years.
It has survived the test of time.
We might be the only two people talking about this movie right now, Katie. I don't know if anyone else is going to do a 50th anniversary retrospective of Snowball Express.
It was like Disney was like, well, we have all this snow and I want to do a bunch of ski stunts. Let's write a movie about people skiing backwards and falling down. And
I feel this movie is the epitome of like lazy 1970s Disney live action fare, right? Like this is kind of, it's not a bad movie. It's not terrible. Like I found it kind of amusing, and I think Dean Jones is a charismatic actor. I like him. And Nancy Olson, who is the subject of our Beyond the Flick segment at the end. We're going to talk about, Katie and I just met her in person in Los Angeles in November for a Sunset Boulevard Q&A and book signing. We're going to talk about that towards the end. But like it's fine. It's an hour and a half. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Like it's got some physical gags that are kind of amusing.
A lot of physical gags. I mean, there was a lot of ski stunts. So that it's like that wasn't cheap to do. Or maybe because it's the 70s and they don't care about like wellness and safety as much as they have to now. But they were just like, yeah, let's have a 20-minute snowmobile race at the end of this.
Which was so, I rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh, I thought we'd finally get a live action Disney movie of this time period where it doesn't end with a race. I thought it wasn't going to, and then it does. Like they have it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
A big snowmobile race. It kind of made me want to enter a snowmobile race myself. If I come to visit you in Reno, can we do that?
Yeah, we'll go snowmobiling. It'll be fantastic.
Snowmobiles in Reno?
Yeah, I mean, not like on my street.
I've never been on one, and now I want to. Not a 1970s one, because those looked real tenuous.
Yeah, they didn't look very safe.
Yeah,
in this movie, like there were a lot of shots, almost like the film is sped up, and you see them toppling over and guys falling out, and I'm like, some of these guys are getting injured.
No, yeah, and I mean it's really dangerous to ski when you don't know what you're doing. And it's really dangerous to just go down a mountain without knowing how to stop. And they're just like, whatever, I'm skiing. Like he really does. They do say that he caused more accidents than they have ever seen since the Great Avalanche. But he would be like criminally prosecuted for that. But because it's a Disney movie, it's just kind of a winky, cute moment. And then it moves on.
A winky, cute moment. So we should kind of open with kind of what the state of things were for Disney at this point in time. So Walt Disney dies in 1966. And then I would say between his death and maybe the mid to late 80s, Disney movies are not great. Like there's a couple here and there. I think the one standout of this period is Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which is the end of 71. We watched that together, right?
Oh, I think so. I watched it recently after Angela passed away.
Angela Lansbury died a few weeks ago, and like that was one of the
R.I.P.
movies that really stuck out to me. Like I need to watch this again. This movie is so much fun.
I mean, the detail in that movie compared to the detail in Snowball Express is striking.
Yes, so we did an episode of Bedknobs a year ago for its 50th anniversary. That's been one of the most popular episodes of the podcast. That one did very well. Like people, like I actually had people comment, like reach out. Like I don't get comments very often for this, so that was cool.
So people
like
listen.
So I think there is like this rabid fan base of Disney property stuff. Like even if it's like a lesser movie. Sure. So I try to find a reason to do even a movie like Snowball Express, which is like kind of a lesser known entry into their in their movies because of Dean Jones, especially, who was in a whole bunch of them around this time. Probably the biggest one is The Love Bug from 1969. Have you seen The Love Bug, the first Herbie movie? There's like 4 of them.
Maybe.
And that also ends in a race in cars.
Of course it does.
That's the end with a race.
All those movies like blend together in my mind. I think I saw them as kids, because it was the 80s and they're showing old 70s movies,
You haven't seen Herbie Goes Bananas?
No. But I have seen The Ladybugs starring Rodney Dangerfield, which is about soccer.
That came up.
Movie?
No, that's not Disney. That came up recently. We talked about that. I can't remember when, but I was like kind of defending Ladybugs, even though it's like it has not aged well.
No, I'm sure it has.
The whole like his girlfriend or fiance's son comes aboard the girls' soccer team and wears a wig, and there's all of these like kind of transphobic jokes, like stuff that doesn't really fly today.
Yeah,
but
I forgot about all that.
92,
no, I don't even remember that.
92, 93 on HBO, watching that, I would laugh my ass off. I loved Rodney Dangerfield. He didn't make very many movies. He made like 7 or 8 major movies, and he's always funny. I really like him.
He is great. I visit his grave often. It's here.
You go to his grave?
Yeah.
Is it at the Forever Cemetery?
No, it's at the very small Pierce Brothers Westwood Cemetery, which is hidden. You kind of have to know where it is. It's off of Wilshire. Huge buildings, and right in the middle there's a little cemetery, and that's where Marilyn Monroe is buried, and several others. But Rodney has a headstone, and it says, "There goes the neighborhood."
You know what would have made this movie funnier is if it was Rodney Dangerfield in the lead role and they'd made it in the mid 80s.
Oh my God.
It would have been funny with
then
Rodney.
People would have remembered it. I mean, we'd still be watching it. It would be like Caddyshack. Like this film wanted to be Caddyshack, but they had no comedians in it.
Yeah.
Very few jokes. I did laugh when the kid was like, "Where is Silver Hills, Colorado?" And his dad was like, "It's in Wyoming." I was like, that's a joke. Jokes. I like jokes.
Yeah, so we should talk about kind of I'm sure most of our listeners have not seen this movie. Maybe
it's on Disney Plus. Go right ahead.
It is on Disney Plus. Disney Plus does not have all of the live action films in their catalog from the 70s.
Oh.
Like we talked the Barefoot Executive last year, and I had to dig deep to find that. It's one of the Kurt Russell Disney movies. They don't have everything. This one is up there.
I wonder
doesn't
if it's
look great.
Issue.
Maybe it's licensing with something, but the movie didn't look great. It was full frame. It was it was like pan and scan. It wasn't widescreen, which makes me wonder.
Right, it wasn't.
It makes me. Did they shoot this in that format, or is this just like an old copy that they threw up there because they didn't have something better? I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know. Yeah.
I needed more widescreen. I needed to see more of the snow.
More snow and more of the. It was like nonstop, like I'm seeing
hijinks.
no! And then
it would
now
go
it happened
on.
for 10 minutes.
It would go on for 10 minutes. And I'm just like, and that's what made me laugh. Was like, if it had been 3 minutes, I would have just been kind of cold. But because it just kept going, I'm like, how big is this hill? That I started laughing after a while because it was so ridiculous.
And like, I mean, because you go skiing, right?
Yeah, I've
been
skied.
skiing. I love skiing. I mean, I haven't gone in forever, but it's like everyone knows the wedge, the pizza wedge. You got to do the wedge to slow down. Everyone learns the wedge. They didn't teach this guy the wedge.
He didn't know.
And they're just like, I'm just gonna. I mean, he would be dead. Sonny Bono dead.
So we should say a little bit about the story. So Dean Jones plays the main character, Johnny Baxter, and he works in New York City. Do we know what was it, like advertising or marketing or something?
He was about insurance. I enjoyed the one big computer that they had in the back, and then he like did something and it started freaking out.
Yeah,
and it's like the one computer the whole office shared. I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, but so he did. I got the sense he didn't like his job, right? Because he learns that he has inherited this, not a ski resort, but a hotel. Right, in Colorado, right, in the Rocky Mountains.
The lawyer says it makes $14,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I looked that up. That is $100,000 in today's dollars. 100 grand.
Would you move to Colorado and bring in $100,000 a month?
He quits immedially. Quits his job immediately and goes home and tells his family, we're moving to Colorado. Yeah. And I'm like, I would have maybe gone and like scoped it out first. Just like said, there's this thing. I think I got to go check it out. I'll get back. He just immediately makes the decision. His poor wife and daughter are like, this is not good, Dad. And
the people I watched this movie with said the same thing. Like one of them was like, why didn't he go out there first and check on the hotel? Like, why did he just like uproot their lives without even knowing what they were getting into? Because he was promised that money.
And his daughter runs and slams the door, and his wife goes and slams the door, and then the dog leaves and slams the door.
So legitimately, Kate, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I actually just forgot it right now. But that was maybe my biggest laugh of the movie.
Yeah.
That he is like trying to reason with his wife about this, and he turns around and he starts monologuing, and he turns back, and we cut to the chair, and it's empty. The wife left. And then the camera moves over to the dog, and he starts talking to the dog, and he does the same move, and then he looks back, and then the dog's gone.
And then you hear a door slam.
Like it wouldn't have been funny if it had cut to a wide shot and you like saw the dog walking off. There was something about him looking back for a second time, and there's just no dog there. It's just like the camera's locked off and it's just empty space. Like there was something about that choice of the camera and the editing that was very funny to me. I thought that was clever.
Funny. That was, yeah.
And it just cuts to a close-up of him, and he's like, oh, and he like, doesn't he like the scene ends there? Like no one's there to listen.
And next thing you know, the whole family's in Colorado driving along with him,
They're driving to, and they don't seem really prepared for the cold, and their vehicle doesn't seem right, and it's that bad rear screen projection behind them as they're driving. And like you could get away with that up until the mid 60s, but once we get to 72, even in a Disney movie, like that looks really chintzy. It looks really stupid. Like they can't show them driving.
It's not seamless. It's seamful. I can see the seams. And you're kind of like, oh, this isn't like okay. But it's like the family hates him or is so mad at him, but they're gonna do it anyway. They're gonna be supportive because this is a man's and his family, a man's life and his family, and the man has the right to uproot his whole family and follow some crazy dream. And
they're so lost that, aren't they asking people in the town, like, so where is this hotel? Direct us. Where do we go? Like, they don't even know where to go.
And they're like, Crazy Jake's place? Oh, you want Crazy Jake? He's over there. But you never really find out while he's crazy until the end.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was crazy because he was philanthropic.
I
think is
a little twist in the screenplay there.
Yeah.
This movie had 3 screenwriters, Katie.
Wow. 3?
Don Tate, Jim Parker, and Arnold Margolin all worked on this screenplay. Do you think it's like, do you think if they're still with us, are they talking about this?
Fall asleep every night thinking about this triumph.
Snowball Express. I don't know if I ever wrote a movie that got made, even if it was bad, like I would just tell people for the rest of my life, like, and I would give out copies and no.
It's true. I mean,
here, watch this. Oh, you wrote this. Okay.
My Christmas gift every year is a copy of Snowball Express.
You get the same gift like every year to the same people.
Here you go. You're
just in case you lost your last one. I have autographed this copy.
Oh, I wrote down, like, when he left his office, he gave one of his coworkers the Greatest Legs Award.
Right.
There's a lot of casual sexism. That's pretty much on par.
Yeah. I mean, no, there's no really interesting characters in the movie. So it's not like, oh, we only give the best parts in this film to the men and the women are but I mean, no one's really getting a great role here. No. I mean, Nancy Olson plays the wife, and she's basically like the ultimate, just like standard Disney live action movie wife, like where she only is there to serve her husband. There's no inner life. There's not one moment where she's thinking or talking about anything except for like her husband and this place. And so, I mean, do we get anything? Do we learn anything about her? Like,
doesn't pass the I'm saying that wrong. It does not pass. That's okay. Because and they don't even talk about like how much friggin' work it would be to run a hotel just yourself. I mean, they're like, she'll handle the food. She's a great cook.
She'll cook.
She's cooking for dozens and dozens of guests because they don't have any guests at first, but then there is an avalanche and the train stalls right in front of their resort. Right. So they get all these people in there, and including like this horny single woman who really wants to get it with
with Johnny.
With Johnny.
He's kind of flirting with the guy.
And she never comes back.
She never comes back. She like how many scenes flirting is she with him,
and his wife's like, you know what? No room service for that bitch. Huh?
She's in like what, 2 scenes of the movie?
Right. And I remember in the last scene, she's like, why don't you give me a private lesson, Johnny? And he's like, I gotta go do another thing, lady. And she's like, okay.
He's like, this is a Disney
movie. Never see her again.
He's like, he should have said to her, this is a Disney movie. Go away.
There's no adultery in Disney movies.
He does get in a bed with Nancy Olson, like they share a bed. They're not like sleeping across the room from each other.
Oh, so yes, that's true. It's really cold. Like, would you want to get into a bed that was in this dusty old building that has cobwebs in it, and it had like raccoons living in the oven?
She says, how do I cook? Remember, she says, how do I cook with the
It's like, it's okay, Nancy, we'll get rid of them. And it's so cold, and there's no heat, and the water heater explodes, and it's like they just gloss over how absolutely difficult it would be to get that sort of property going and maintained. Yeah. Well, and the one scene is just full of cobwebs and disgusting, and then the next day it's beautiful, gleaming, no cobwebs.
They put in like 6 solid hours of hard work, and now the whole place looks just fantastic. You didn't buy that?
No. I thought that would be more of it. I thought there would be like a getting the place together montage. No.
So then we meet some of the townspeople. There's this guy who really wants to purchase it from him, right? Like that's like a big piece of the plot is like he wants to take it off Johnny's hands, and Johnny's like, no, we're gonna make it work. The banker guy in town.
Yeah. Mr. Ridgemont or something.
Yeah. Who's like secretary or assistant is Miss Wigginton, played by Mary Wicks from Sister Act. Did you recognize her from Sister Act?
I did not.
She's like the old like crotchety one in Sister Act and in Little Women from 1994.
Oh.
She was like I knew of her like because she passed away in 96, so I kind of knew of her as a kid as being like the oldest woman in the movie in Sister Act and Little Women. And then I've seen her pop up in some older films, and I saw her in this, and I went, it's Mary Wicks.
It's Mary. And
Mary.
she's like tight-lipped until the very end when she reveals his like evil plan.
His evil
She could have said that in the beginning, and it would have been
her whole role in the movie. Mary Wick's whole role is just to sit there thinking and looking kind of like, and then to just tell us that piece of information at the end. That's like all
really big piece of information, which is that the property is bigger than what he knows it to be, and in fact he owns like acres and acres of property, and in fact maybe even owns the whole town.
All of that land is up for grabs here.
And then the evil guy tries to buy it for $200.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
It's a really good deal.
And then there's two kid characters. I mean, this movie, Nancy Olson has stuff to do throughout the movie. The kids, I think, are pretty well blanks, especially the daughter. She has like no characterization, nothing. She's hot. We know she's hot. The guys in town want her.
The guys in town want her, and she doesn't know how to make a hot buttered rum. She asked her dad, "What do you heat first, the butter or the rum?" And so then he goes, "I'll take over as bartender. You just serve." She's like, "Oh, phew." And that's it. And she was upset to leave New York, but she didn't seem that upset when she got there. Nowadays,
but like,
be like, "I'm staying in school in New York. You can go to Colorado and I'm gonna live a Gossip Girl life here in New York without you."
But like 20 years later, one of the big changes here would have been the daughter would have had her own subplot of like, oh my gosh, you moved me away from New York City, all my friends. Now I'm in this middle of nowhere, Colorado town in dead of winter, and her like going into town and meeting some boy and them having a story. That would have been in the 92 version of this.
Right. She has nothing.
But the movie is not interested in her.
And then so the young son, her brother, Richard, he is, no one listens to him, even though he has the good ideas in the family.
And the boy looks nothing like his parents at all.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's true.
Usually I don't care. Like the daughter looked like she could have been Nancy Olson's kid, but the boy had like wavy red hair and freckles. And I'm like, okay, movie. I guess I'll try to buy that.
But of course, then the dog. I did like the dog actor. The dog actor kept going. The dog's name was Stoutheart, and his characterization was that he was timid. He had more characterization than the daughter. And he had more like lines and jokes than the daughter did.
More humor from the dog.
Yes, because there was one of the ladies in the hotel starts screaming and is like, oh my God. And then so what's his name? The main guy?
Johnny
goes in there and he's like, how dare you get out of this nice woman's bed? And he drags the dog out, and that's the joke. It's a dog. You don't know what it is, but it's the dog.
Yeah.
The dog had more jokes. More jokes and more characterization than the daughter, and almost more than Nancy Olson as the wife. But Nancy Olson looked really cute.
I wish you had said something to her when we met her about Snowball Express. That would have been fantastic.
I know. I had nothing to say to her except, "Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. It's great that you're doing this." But if there's one thing I liked about Nancy Olson in this movie is that she is in a lot of the movie. It's not like she's in two scenes. They show up and then it's Dean Jones off on his adventures and she's relegated to being in one scene at the beginning, one scene at the end when he comes home or something. She's in like a lot of the movie. It's not a small role. So I like that about it.
Well, it wasn't like a difficult do you think it was like hard to do that job?
You think she was on set? She was on set, like really thinking hard about her lines and like, how do I emote in this moment? Like, do you think she was just there? Like,
there's raccoons in the oven. I don't know. They didn't really give her a lot.
But she's in a lot of the movie, so if you like Nancy Olson,
she looks really cute in her little snow outfit.
I loved her hair, that little flip she had in her hair. That was nice.
Cute little hair.
I want you to do that. I want you to do that when you're in your 40s. When she shot this movie, Katie. I looked at her birth date. She was around 43 when she shot this.
Wow.
And I'm like, she looks fantastic. And she looked great when we saw her at 94.
She looked amazing at 94. I mean, she's really sharp. It's those like Swedish genes, I guess, Scandinavian genes, because I mean, she was sharp and witty and impeccably dressed, super
Yeah.
chic. I mean, she looked great. And so I know I had nothing.
But here she is. She's like, yeah, hi. She's like 43 years old filming this movie, and that age for a woman in Hollywood, like you're kind of being aged out of film work. And so I think part of it is she didn't want to pursue film acting for her whole life, and that's she talked about that in her book a little bit. But like after this, she shows up in very small roles in things here and there for the next 20 years. But I want to say this might be the last like lead role in a movie that she's in.
Oh.
I don't think she has a lead role in anything else after this movie. This is it.
Well,
I think she went to the premiere and she watched the film and went, I'm done. I think I'm done. I'm just gonna go be a mom and just enjoy my life.
She did say in her book how much she did enjoy Disney and on the Disney lot and working with Disney and working with Walt, but I guess Walt was dead by this time.
Walt died in 66. So I think he was a big instigator in like bringing her onto some movies, Pollyanna and The Absent-Minded Professor. Like he played a role because that was like 60, 61. So he probably reached out to her and was like, we'd love to have you in some.
He reached out to her for Pollyanna, and they were like, we want to make in the book she mentioned that
Wholesome Olson.
Yes, Wholesome Olson. And like Disney was known for its animated, but they really wanted to make some live action stuff, and they're like, okay, we're gonna remake Pollyanna with like big time stars.
Right.
Haley Mills.
Haley Mills and Nancy Olson.
Nancy Olson.
And then she's in.
She really was the ingenue, that was her thing.
Yeah.
Like she's like blue-eyed and darling and kind of innocent, but not because she's very smart. I mean, and that's what I think everyone was attracted to.
Yeah.
And that's how she got cast in Sunset Boulevard, I think. I mean, that was
right. Yeah, Billy Wilder recognized on the lot when he would see her that she had some sort of spark for that character. Like he could see that just in talking to her on the lot, which was such a great story she shared. We're going to talk more about her at the end when we share like our actually meeting her in person. That's why we're talking a little bit more about Nancy Olson than I think almost anyone else in the world would talk about her for this movie. They'd be like, well, okay.
She is our close personal friend.
She's our friend.
And I know where she lives in Beverly Hills. I
would have loved to, like, if you had said, hi, Nancy, Snowball Express, one of my faves. What would she have said to that?
She'd been like, oh, you're boring.
She would have been like, she would have said probably would have said, oh, that's lovely, or something like that. Who do I make it out to?
Have you not seen any other movies, child?
Yeah. So the film.
I wanted to ask her if Flubber was real. That's what I wanted to ask. Is Flubber real?
Yeah, I think you made the right choice.
But I definitely will.
So the film was directed by Norman Tokar. This was one of his earlier movies he made as a director. He went on to make probably his most famous movie is The Apple Dumpling Gang for Disney with Don Knotts. And he also made Candle Shoe for Disney, which starred a young Jodie Foster. And he did an adaptation of Where the Red Fern Grows. I don't think that's a Disney movie. I think that's something else. Okay. And we have to mention, he also made The Cat from Outer Space, which is on Disney Plus and is very entertaining.
I've never heard of that one.
Watch The Cat from Outer Space. It's pretty wild. It's fun. I mean, nothing great, but so he was mostly a Disney director. He didn't make a lot of movies, but that was kind of his thing. Same thing with Dean Jones, our lead actor. Like from 68 to the mid 70s, he was a Disney actor guy, right? He's in That Darn Cat from 65. Have you seen That Darn Cat?
Yeah, as a kid, it's been a while.
I think that's the first one. And then he does Blackbeard's Ghost, The Love Bug, $1 Million Duck, which we talked about last year with Jason Sheridan from podcast The Ride. That was another hugely popular episode. I mean, part of it's the guests, of course, Katie. We got a great one for Snowball Express. So let's see this episode get like the maximum amount of downloads.
I am
everyone, and oh my God,
artist.
did you see on Film at 50? They're talking Snowball Express. We got to listen to this one.
I have such insightful commentary. It is razor wit.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the stable of Disney people: the director, the screenwriters, the main star, Nancy Olson. They're all kind of like they're around these movies.
Yeah.
So casting was probably, I don't think there was a lot of time spent on who is going to play Johnny.
No time spent.
Dean
it
Jones.
was literally like they were like, we have this hill with all the snow. Like let's make a movie about it. like that's what it seemed like to me.
I would like to know how much time was actually spent in real snow. like how much time did Dean Jones spend in the snow? Because a lot of his shots look like they're done on a back lot.
That's true.
Right?
Like half the movie was like, oh, rear projection.
I would imagine the interior of the hotel, that was a back lot. I don't think that was done on like a real like set in Colorado.
No, probably not. It did say that it was shot on location in Colorado.
It says shot on location, but there's enough like rear screen projection. I'm like, I don't know if all of this is being done in Colorado.
Yeah.
You know,
and like so they like need a steam engine. They have an old steam engine which they use as the tow rope to pull people up, but then it breaks and then slams through the hotel, like goes directly through the hotel into the end.
Yeah.
And then they're just like,
and what is Nancy Olson doing in this moment?
She is
when it plows through the hotel.
She's just like, oh.
She stand in the kitchen or something and her hands go up and she's just like and she watches it, like the camera's like behind her back and you just see like it going through the hotel and she's just standing there still like with her hands up.
Honestly, that's one of my like nightmares that I have had, that I've envisioned, you know, just sitting somewhere and then a car like comes crashing
just
through.
Plows into the Starbucks or whatever.
That is something I've thought about. And so if I found that happening to me, I'd be like freaking out. Oh my God.
You wouldn't just be standing there with your mouth.
Giant holes in the hotel. I guess we'll go ask the banker for, you know, $1,000 to fix it up.
Yeah. So did you like the hijinks of this movie of what, 2 or 3 sequences where there's just a lot of skiing or snowboarding and rear screen projection of Dean Jones going, whoa?
There wasn't any snowboarding. There was no snowboarding happening. There's nothing like that. There were
snowmobiling.
There were kind of stunts, but I think someone did do like a flip. There was like a flip stunt, but it was mostly people falling down. Yeah. If you're into people falling down as comedy, you would love this movie.
If the thought of someone who's not a very good skier, doesn't know how to ski, being at the top of a hill and accidentally going down backwards and can't stop himself for 7-8 minutes.
That happens like 3 times in the movie where he's like, whoo, and then someone pushes him accidentally. Yeah. He's like, no. Like, and you're like, again.
And so what these scenes are made up of are basically lots of wide shots of a stunt guy like going down a hill backwards on snow, and then it cuts to Dean Jones, not a super close up, but you kind of like torso up to his face, and he's just going whoa, and it's like the worst rear screen projection you've ever seen. Like it's like the matching it to the real footage of someone's actually skiing looks so fake that I'm like, were they trying to make it look this silly for the comedy, or is it just this is how it turned out?
I know, like the colors didn't even match, you know, like the colors and the background didn't even match. It's like really, I don't know. Did people buy it at the time? Were people like, wow, it looks pretty good? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, we can't go back 50 years.
I bet you a lot of, especially audience members who didn't go to the movies very much, maybe only went to see Disney, weren't really into like R-rated fare and stuff. Like maybe those people who saw 2-3 movies in a theater a month really bought into those effects, thought they looked great.
I wonder if did Walt Disney ever own a ski resort? This was all probably publicity to get people to go skiing.
Yeah, that's what would make sense. Like the whole movie could be an advertisement for Disney Ski Resort, Colorado, somewhere. I don't
Yeah, or
think they had one
something.
at the time. They might now.
Yeah. I wonder.
Do
I
they
mean, and
have
it was
property
there's
in Colorado? I don't know.
so much of that. And then the last scene or the last big scene was the snowmobile race in which they're
Right.
trying to win so that they can win the cash prize so that they can keep the hotel open.
3 cash prizes.
Three
Wasn't
cash
it? It was
prizes
2,500. What was it? 25, 15, 1,000?
and 1,000. Yeah.
That's like a lot of money in 1972. Like
Lot of freaking money.
who's ponying up that money for this race?
Exactly, for this thing. And then it's like 20 minutes of a stunt guy on a snowmobile, and then you cut to the rear projection of him like, I'm on a snowmobile.
Guys falling off and like, is there any planting of that early in the movie? Like that race is coming. I feel like it came out of nowhere right at the end. Like, was there something early on?
There was a little plant of it.
Oh, there was.
Like
okay.
When they first arrive, it says something like annual snowmobile race.
Okay. And they make reference to it. They talk about it.
Yes. The family doesn't know, but I think the neighbors do or something. There definitely was a little.
I must have been getting a drink at that moment.
I was like, don't pick up your phone. Don't pick up your phone and start looking at your phone. Keep watching this. You might miss something. During the snowmobile race, I was like,
because about an hour in, I'm like, oh, this is actually going to be a rare film of this period at Disney where it doesn't have a big sporting event competition of a lot of people, and then it does.
It could have used some animated penguins or some other animated sort of situation, a la Mary Poppins or something, but no. And
that would have been a different direction to take the movie in. I mean, they would have had to establish that reality pretty early.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think if he had a penguin pet that was animated, the whole movie might have been better.
That would have been cute.
Nancy Olson combing its hair and
all the animals help them with the hotel, and it's like Cinderella,
the animals in Cinderella,
and they help them with the hotel, and they're helping them with all the stuff, and the dog is friends with them. I mean,
could this been a musical? Could this have been a Bedknobs and Broomsticks musical?
Well, does Nancy Olson? Well, she does know how to sing, and she plays the piano, and I don't know if she dances. But she's not a Julie Andrews type.
Yeah.
But then at the end, I think they lose the race anyway. But I was kind of confused because to me it looked like they won. But then they're like, you lost. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Didn't they get almost to the finish line? And then it turned a different way. And then it turns to night. And then they come up in their snowmobile hours later to complete the race. That was very strange. I didn't
understand that at all, because I thought the snowmobile broke, and then they're pushing it to the finish line,
and then someone else beats them.
And then the other guy, and then he it's cuts to night, and he's got a horse attached to his sled, and he's doing the horse, and they kind of, and the horse drags him across the finish line with his sled. I'm like, hey, where did the horses come from?
Yeah.
That happened a few times where horses show up out of nowhere, and they bringing the guests from them. I'm like, who's taking care of these horses? Whose horses are these? It doesn't. But and then they imply that Nancy Olson, because she was like, if you do this race, I am leaving you and going back to New York. Do not do this race.
She's putting
this
her foot
dangerous.
He's putting her foot down.
Putting her foot down, and then he decides to do the race anyway. And then when he finally crosses the finish line, who is waiting for him?
His wife.
Yeah. She stayed anyway.
She did not leave. Wholesome Olsen did not leave him stranded.
Her boundaries do not matter.
So we get this race at the end. We get lots of hijinks, and we get this twist at the end, this banker guy. We find out that he's wanting the property because it's worth a lot more than they realize, and it's more of the land. It's not just the building. And
right. And the guy was like, his descendant who died, who left him the hotel, was like, I have all these acres and I give it to the Indians, the native people who originally lived on this land, and I give this land back to them as long as they're here. But then they're like, well, all the Indians died and left, so I guess it's yours now. And I'm like, that doesn't seem reasonable, but okay. And so now he has all the land, and then they're like, well, I didn't. And the other thing was, his descendant gave money to the town if they built a library and a couple other, social programs. And then the kid was like, I didn't see a library. Doesn't that mean it reverts back to you, Dad? And they're like, oh, we never thought about that.
There was an absurd amount of plot in this movie. Like a lot of scenes of talking, of like revealing things about the plot. And I'm like, this movie should be very, very simple. Like, why are we having all of these dialogue scenes with the banker? And it's like, didn't you think that was kind of too much for this movie?
Yes, absolutely. Well,
like,
yeah.
Do kids watching this in 72 care about any of this stuff?
No. Like arbitration and like property law and like,
yeah. It's like, okay, that's what the three screenwriters were researching all of this and trying to get it right. It's like, it's a Disney movie. Like,
and then
this
like
is
the
like
bad
a funny
guy
little
is
movie.
like, oh, it never occurred to me that actually you own the town. I guess I'll be helpful to you now and loan you the money you needed.
Yeah. So they don't actually create the ski resort until the very end, right? Like, isn't that at the very end of the movie? Like that they have a ski resort? Because before that, isn't the ski resort like elsewhere? Like that, like all of the hijinks of him skiing, that's not his ski resort, right? He only has the hotel.
No, they have that hill right by the hotel, and that's where they put that tow rope there. They just have like the one hill to ski down.
But there's that one place to go to that has the very fancy chairlift. That's not his, right? That's like someone else's.
That was like the other one.
Okay.
That's right. They do the whole thing where he is like on a ski, and was with that like a Dick Van Dyke brother guy was like next to him or something. I don't remember.
I did like the part where he's not paying attention and he just falls flat on his face when he's supposed to get off the chairlift, and just like,
that's pretty. It's like, keep your tips up, and he doesn't do it, and then they're like, stop the chairlift. We gotta get this asshole off the ground.
Yeah, that's
pretty classic.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
That happens a lot.
Been on a chairlift and it goes the gunk, and you're like, oh, someone fell.
But it was like the 70s, they didn't even have a bar, like holding them in the chairlift. They're just sitting there. I mean, it could, the 70s.
But so at the end, it's a very happy ending, and everything worked out for the family, and they're still there. And then he starts to fall back again on his skis. And this time Nancy Olson is skiing with him. Like, she's up there with him, his wife, Sue. And that's where she goes, Johnny. So it has the ending of like the family's all together and he starts going down backwards. It only is for like 20 seconds. It's pretty quick. Yeah. And then he's like rolling around with his wife on the ground, and they're and they're all laughing. The dog's there. Isn't the dog going? The dog's like on a sled or something.
Yeah. And with that like weird homeless man that they found living in the hotel, that they're just like, okay, you can be a part of the family now.
Right. Like, middle of the night. We should mention that part. In the middle of the night, they're awoken by a noise downstairs, and they think it's an animal, and it's like a man who's like living there, squatting there.
Who says he's 75 years old.
Yeah.
And he's gonna go out and live in a hole in a tree, and they're like, okay, you can stay, but you're gonna work. Yeah. And then he becomes the bellhop. And he's like the fun uncle that lives there now. They're just like, okay, great.
And that's the only piece of trivia I could find in this movie, Katie. So Harry Morgan, who played that role of Jesse, he says in the movie that he's single and 75. And he was actually, at the time of shooting, 57 years old.
Yeah, he did not look 75. My dad is about to turn 75. And I was like, this is not accurate.
Is that weird when you're taking a part in a movie that says you state proudly that you're 75 and single and you're actually 57 at the time? Like, do you feel like maybe I should change my look, or that I'm going up for parts of 20 years older?
Really, yeah, it's not good for your self-esteem, probably. I would like to play a 60-year-old woman.
I feel like we would both need some prosthetics, right, to pass for 60. Like
I just have
you would need
amazing
like
skin for 60. I do the full on
yeah.
face in the ice bucket thing.
So this was
Oh.
this movie came out in December of 1972. This was a big month for movies. You had the Poseidon Adventure, the Heartbreak Kid. You had Jeremiah Johnson with Robert Redford. We just talked about that. That'll be next week's episode. And so there were some big films coming out around this time. And I feel like Snowball Express is just such an average movie that I think it probably did okay for a couple weeks, but it really did come and go. Like, I don't think this was staying in theaters for $3. Like, I think this one I bet most people walked out and kind of just shrugged and went,
It's
like,
kind of interesting that they didn't make it a Christmas movie. They didn't make it a holiday movie. It could have easily
in the
been.
snow.
There's nothing about holidays, nothing about Christmas. It's like the opposite of Die Hard. Where did you just hear what Bruce Willis had to say about Die Hard? As he came out and said, it is not a Christmas movie.
Oh, that was a while ago. I remember I read that quote. He said according to him, it is not a Christmas movie.
Not a Christmas movie because it was released in the summer. It was a summer movie. You know, It happens to take place at Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie. La la la. But then so this Snowball Express is a holiday movie coming out in December. I mean,
yeah.
They could have done that. Why didn't they do that?
We're going to release this movie in December and it's set in the snow. It would have made a lot of sense for this to have been mid to late December. And then like nearing that snowmobile race, it's like December 22nd or something. And the movie ends on Christmas Day. We could have had all of the lights up throughout the movie and that would have added an element to it. I think the movie would have more staying power now if it had the Christmas element. That's a good point.
Yeah, Santa could have showed up and like
in the snowmobile
the ski resort. Yeah, and
Santa going backwards down the hill.
Like, whoa,
and just going down the hill.
They're like, oh no, Santa's gonna die.
Yeah, and you see Nancy Olson steps up to the plate and she just starts like skiing down trying to save Santa. Like that would have been a funny scene.
Save Santa.
You could see her like rear projection like reaching for his like hat and then she grabs the hat but he keeps going down.
Right.
And
oh no, she's like, oh no, Santa.
Oh, only that.
But then he's magic, so he just like saves himself and
he just starts like floating in the air.
He's like, I need a hot buttered rum. And she's like, right away, Santa.
Yeah. So I did find 3 reviews for this movie online. So Howard Thompson of the New York Times watched this film
in the 70s.
In 72. He
Okay.
said, what it lacks in wit, it has in wholesome, hearty chuckles. Add to this some nice snowy backgrounds and slope activity in the Colorado ski country. That
Slope
apparently
activity.
is a rave review.
I love slope activity.
And hearty chuckles. Don't forget that part.
Heartily chuckling.
Variety said, bearing all the elements audiences have come to expect in Disney product, the film concentrates on fast action and visual comedic situations, which should be well received for its intended market. Like that sounds like there's a gun to someone's head. Like, say something nice about Snowball Express.
This is like very technical. Technically, there was skis and there was a movie, and then
I couldn't find a Roger Ebert review of it, but I did find a Gene Siskel review. He gave it 2.5 stars out of 4. Respectable. He said youngsters probably will be bored with a plot that ultimately hinges on a legal technicality involving the probate of a will, but they should enjoy the slapstick, the trick skiing sequences, and the family Saint Bernard that detests cold weather.
I told you the dog is the best part.
It's weird how all 3 reviews are almost kind of like they're not hating on the movie, but you can tell from the descriptions of these reviews that there's not a lot of passion. There's not a lot of like, they're not saying it's bad, but they're not saying go see it.
Yeah. They're like, we don't want Walt to rise from his grave and come and strangle me. So
But yeah, I mean, I think it did okay. It was one of those movies. It didn't do terrible at the box office, terrible with reviewers. It just was like, kind of that so passable family entertainment. And by spring of 73, I think it had been forgotten. But it's not forgotten now, Katie. 50 years on, we're bringing it back from the dead one more time.
Snowball Express lives. It lives in infamy.
So, do you have anything else to say about this movie? Is there anything we forgot to mention?
I talked about the greatest legs award.
Yes, that's important.
That there were no women racing. Nancy Olson raced with him. Like, she should have been on the snowmobile with him, and they could have done it together.
Yeah, why is Nancy Olson not a part of the race?
Right, like it's like there were no women. It was no, like, they're not involved. No women allowed. And I'm like, okay, that seems weird. I mean, that's just like something that I would be like, oh, of course there would be women. But no, he has to do it with the homeless man that they adopted.
That's right.
And that's who's the
God forbid we have any women on the snowmobile. That would be wrong. No women
on the snowmobiles. And I have shut up Wally. He said that a lot. That was a joke.
Shut up, Wally.
Shut up, Wally. Wally was the dumb kid that also helped them a little bit with their like stuff, although he blew up the boiler, the water heater.
Okay.
And he liked the daughter. And he was dumb.
Yeah.
But he built the snowmobile out of pieces of other snowmobiles, and that's why it was called the Mongrel, the mighty Mongrel.
Oh, okay.
So he had a lot more characterization than
classic.
And he would say stupid things, and they'd be like, "Shut up, Wally."
So my last question about the movie, Katie, like, if Disney were to remake this today, what would this movie look like today, do you think?
Ooh, interesting.
If we got a 2023 Snowball Express on Disney Plus, like, what would that movie look like? It wouldn't go to theaters. I don't think that would go to theater. Who would play the guy? It would have a lot more
jokes.
Yeah.
It would have a lot more romance.
Mm-hmm.
It would have a lot more. It would have crazy stunts. Stunts.
Bigger stunts.
Way bigger
that looked
stunts.
real. Yeah.
There would be like X Games snowboarding in it. You know,
yeah.
People would
it wouldn't be snowmobiling, I think. I think it'd be like some sort of it would be something more modern. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be way snappier, and the evil guy would be really evil, and you would know that he was evil. And, you know, hopefully the women would have more characterization and have stories and talk to each other about something that isn't a man. And the dog would probably be CG, which is sad.
It'd be a CG dog.
The real dog, the dog actors, but they would probably have a CG dog. And who would be cast in it?
Who would play Johnny? Would it be Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, I mean, that's who they'd want. But they'd probably end up with like,
they wouldn't get him. So who would they get? Who's the C-list Ryan Reynolds?
Ooh, I know.
I don't want to throw any actors under the bus, so I don't even know if I should.
I do. It would be. I can't think of anyone's name. Shit.
Who just like shows up in like Disney Plus junk that doesn't really have much of a film career, but it's like in some stuff. We know his name, but like who would like?
I just want to say like Rob Schneider.
I think he's too old for the role.
Wait, is he really?
He would play the homeless guy.
The homeless guy. Rob Schneider is too old. That makes me sad. Like a dopey guy. I mean, it would be Chris Pratt, but Chris Pratt is too big.
He's too big. Yeah.
Too big,
like who does TV stuff? Oh, I know who would be. It's the guy, the main guy from Community. He'd do it.
Oh, Joe McHale.
McHale would be the star of Snowball.
He definitely is like a poor man's.
Not to say I don't like him. I think he was great in Severance, which is a great show on Apple TV. He's a good actor, but he's also shown up in some junky comedies here and there. I could see him doing it.
I went to a live taping of The Soup and met him.
Oh, okay.
It was awesome. He's really funny. I like him. So, but yeah, that would be kind of good. And so
it would be. I think unless it was really just made, kind of slap shot, like not a lot of thought. Like I think the remake would be better. Like I think this one they would make it better, right? At least a little.
It'd have to be. And do more of like getting the place together and like funny guests, more funny guests and funny situations, and like
Nancy Olson could play the secretary, the Mary
or
Wick's
she could
character.
be a guest. She could come and be a guest, and make.
Because she cameoed in 1997's Flubber, the Robin Williams
she really?
Flubber. She has an uncredited role.
Why didn't I ask her about Flubber? I should have asked her about Flubber.
Nancy, what was it like working with Robin Williams? You should have asked that.
Is on Flubber real? Nancy, tell me.
And she would have been like, darling, I starred in the 60s Flubber with, what was it, Fred McMurray? And you would be like, no, Nancy, you're on IMDb 1997 Flubber with Robin Williams. Uncredited, but you're in it. Tell me about that experience.
I demand you tell me about that experience and not the other one.
And then you're just being like hauled away by security while I'm standing there awkwardly.
Yeah. So I just said, hey, Nancy, it's real cool of you to do this.
Yeah. I don't think there is such a version of this being made now that's a good film. No. Like, I don't think that's possible.
Like I said, it needs like a supernatural element or like cartoon characters or something like that. It needs it needs another layer of something, like a murder mystery.
But I should mention before we move on, I forgot to say it earlier. I think I said it before we started recording. So I usually watch Film at 50 movies by myself. And so I'm watching this movie by myself downstairs. I watched the first 20, 30 minutes of it. And all of a sudden, some of our friends walked in. I didn't know they were coming over and we were going to have a taco night dinner. And I was about to turn it off, but I thought, well, maybe they'll just go in the other room and chat for a few minutes. I'll try to, I'd like to get to halfway and then I'll finish it tomorrow. So I keep the movie going and they proceed to get drinks and then they walk in. They say, what are you watching? And I say, oh, it's some old Disney movie for Film at 50, my podcast. And they're like, oh, and then they sit down. And then our friends, it was, a couple and their daughter, and they sat next to me. And then they just watched the rest of the movie with me. And they laughed a lot. Like they kind of liked it. Like they were laughing at all the hijinks and they were into it. They weren't like, oh, God, when is this over? Brian, turn it off. Like everybody was like watching it. And at the end, Kevin, our friend, the husband, like he turned to me, he's like, thanks for letting us watch that with you. It was very strange.
I mean, it went down real easy.
Yeah.
It went down real easy. It was not
like they were laughing hard at him skiing backwards. Like they thought that part was funny.
Okay. I mean, if you think, physical humor works most of the time. Whoa,
so we weren't
happening again. I never learned the pizza wedge, so slow down.
Like I would not give this movie more than a 5 out of 10. It's probably like in the 4 or 5 out of 10 range for me. Yeah. But I've watched films, dramatic films that got Oscar nominations in the last year for this podcast that were real slogs where I'm like, I don't know if I can get to the end of this. This is so boring, blah, 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 blah. And that was not the case here. Like it's an easy watch. Yeah. Like it's like, it doesn't leave you with much to think about, but it's an easy, funny at times watch. So it's not a terrible film. I wouldn't put it at the bottom of the movies I've looked at for 72. It's just that very just kind of boringly average movie.
Right. Like the photography wasn't anything, wasn't spectacular or interesting or even like colorful. I mean, so the photography was just sort of basic. The writing was sort of basic.
Acting was simple.
Was basic. Yeah. Yeah. There wasn't
there's some gags in it that are funny. I like when it goes through the house and Nancy Olson's in the kitchen, like with her mouth hanging. I mean, there's some funny. I still think the funniest gag though is him talking to the dog and then the dog leaves. That's the best joke in the movie.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's the joke that raises this for me from a 4 out of 10 to a 5. I think that joke brings it to a 5. 50%.
Yeah.
It's still enough, but
I didn't get so bored that I wanted to turn it off. It kind of kept going. And the stupid race at the end took forever.
Yeah.
So like 20 minutes. And I know it's just different, like times, you know, I'm
Different
used to 3-minute
expectations.
videos. Anything that's over 3 minutes, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
way too long. Kind of like this podcast. Congratulations if you're still listening.
We go at least an hour here, Katie. That's how we roll at Film at 50.
I love you
I
and I
did.
support you.
But this will not be one of our 2.5 hour episodes. I promise you that.
I know you. There's nothing to talk about this movie for that long.
I think we did okay. We just hit about an hour. That's good. All
Okay,
right.
great.
So if you're like a Disney completist, it's on Disney Plus. If you're it's a good, like, if you're sick, like you're not feeling well, it's Sunday afternoon, you're in bed with, you know, hot cocoa or tea, and you just want to put on something just stupid from days of old, of the 70s. Like,
Right, you're feeling
you could
nostalgic.
do worse. You could do worse.
And you really wish you were skiing. I mean, and it is like, I do love the like aesthetic of 70s films, you know. It has that look in spades, which is great.
The hair and the costumes.
Yeah. So I mean,
so that's
the completist.
Yeah. As I am. Did you know, Katie? You know me. You've known me a long time. Since Disney Plus came into being in November of 2019, I've been slowly watching every movie on Disney Plus from the beginning to now. I just entered 1996. I'm watching the 96. I've watched like one a week.
Is that Heavyweights?
I just watched Heavyweights. That was 95. And then 96. What did I watched one recently? I'm getting close to Hunchback of Notre Dame. I have not seen that movie since I was a kid.
Wow.
I'm curious to see how it holds up.
Yeah.
26 years later.
Depressing, I think.
It's very depressing, like dark Disney animated movie.
I haven't seen it in a while.
It's like right after.
Like, I think Scott and I watched it and got drunk and like made fun of it.
It's
like, this is just painful.
It's the movie that kind of brought down the animation department, because they were on a roll with Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. And then Pocahontas from 95 wasn't as popular acclaimed as they expected. So it was a little bit of a drop there, but people still liked it and it did well. And then Hunchback really kind of dropped things down. Like parents, I don't think, responded to all the darkness in the story. And then the movie, I think, severely underperformed at the box office.
Really?
So that's when the animation department kind of started going south for a while, would not rebound until you get to movies like Tangled and Frozen in the early 2010s.
Right.
All of the animation superstars were Pixar movies. Like, those were the ones that were doing well.
Yeah, Pixar had its moments.
So right when Pixar starts with Toy Story and A Bug's Life, the Disney animation department starts fading, and not in terms of the quality so much, but just like they just weren't, audiences weren't responding to them as much. So I'm excited to watch that. The one I just watched was Muppet Treasure Island with Tim Curry. I had never seen it.
Oh, I love Tim Curry.
And it was delightful.
Tim Curry should have been in Snowball Express.
He could have been. I mean, he shot Rocky Horror in 75. So he was around.
Oh my God. He would have been so much better with Tim Curry. He should have played every character. Tim Curry playing every character in Snowball Express.
There is a song he sings in Muppet Treasure Island about being a pirate that was pretty wonderful.
Really? I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I gotta watch it.
Yeah, it's like big and booming, and he's like, something I like about being a pirate. And it's like, he's like he's singing to the back row, and it's hilarious. I couldn't believe it.
Isn't Michael Caine in a movie with puppets too? With Muppets?
Yeah, and that's the one they did before that. That's Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes, I love that. I mean, I love that story too. So I mean, I love those like big time actors with like massive talents with the Muppets.
Yeah, if you like Muppet movies, yeah. Muppet Treasure Island, which was much more entertaining than Snowball Express was. But so the Divine Double Feature, as we get to our final two segments, what would you pair with Snowball Express, a more recent movie?
Well, you kind of already mentioned it.
Okay.
I say Frozen.
Frozen. 2. Oh, Frozen
2.
2. Okay, why Frozen 2?
It would be, well, you're already on Disney Plus. And so if you want to see what Disney movies were like in the 70s versus like Frozen 2 now, and see the breadth of change,
Right.
um
Storytelling
in
and
storytelling.
pacing.
I mean, it's incredible. I didn't really like the first Frozen very much, but I really liked the
The
second
second one.
one.
Okay.
And just the animation, photography just blew me away. I mean,
Right.
it's so detailed down to seeing the reflections of the other characters in their eyes, like as they're, you can, I mean, it's like insanely detailed compared to Snowball Express,
Right.
which seems really undetailed, very generic, broad strokes, and then you watch Frozen 2, you can just really see how far they've come. I thought that would be an interesting double
That's
feature.
a great choice. I watched Frozen 2 once, and I remember I put it on late and I fell asleep during the movie. And then I finished it like the next day or a day later. So I didn't really get like a great experience watching Frozen 2. So maybe I need to take a look at that again. I mean, I'm in 1996 right now. So when I get to 2019, I'll definitely watch it again. That might be about 10 years from now, but
I didn't want to watch it, and I ended up watching it with my little goddaughter, and
okay.
and I was just like,
and you were into it more than she was?
No, she was really into it. I was just like, the animation is so good. I was just like freaking out about how it looked. Like how it looked so incredible compared to how Snowball Express looks.
Yeah.
And that's not even factoring in the storytelling, the dynamics of that. So we'll make Snowball Express look like a pile of melted snow.
That's awesome. So I didn't go with the snow element. I went with the family dynamic element. And a movie that came out last year on Netflix that I loved. Did you see The Mitchells versus the Machines?
No.
It's not a Disney movie. It's a Netflix animated film.
Oh.
And it's kind of like Incredibles style. It's a family of 4, and it's a lot of like science fiction, and it's got some comedic hijinks in it, but it's done with a lot more flair and energy. And it's like the effects of this world being like overtaken by robots and chaos, and at the heart of it is this family of 4, kind of like the Incredibles, and they have to, but they're not like everything that they're capable of in the Incredibles. I just thought like that would be a fun, more modern movie about a family that's kind of like got that Disney feeling and the hijinks and stuff. It's really funny. It's really creative. So, and I feel like it kind of fell through the cracks a bit last year because it was just kind of dropped on Netflix. I want to say in March or April of 2021.
Yeah,
and after a month or two, I don't think anyone, if you didn't really hear about it opening weekend, like on Netflix, like it kind of like faded away, but it's really good. Like I would check it out. I think you'd like it. It's like, it's really cool. It's fun.
All right. Did you say it's animated?
It's animated. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I think it was supposed to go to theaters, and then the pandemic happened, and then they eventually just dropped it on Netflix. I think that's what happened. Because it's really strong. Like it's well written. It's very funny. It feels like a theatrical movie.
Mitchells versus the Machines?
It's called The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's on Netflix. Yeah, I think you'd like it. It's fun.
It's a good recommendation. I'll check it out.
And yeah, when we get to this podcast in 2071, we can talk about it. we only have to wait till 2069 to talk about Frozen 2, though, so we don't have as much of a wait there.
I hope I live to 2069.
Are you gonna be? Would you be surprised if in 2069 I'm still doing this?
I wouldn't be surprised. No. You'll be a very famous film critic by then.
When we're in our,
and they'll be like, "What film is he talking about? Frozen 2?" And it's
Frozen 2. Back in the day.
Nowadays, we see movies directly plugged into our brains, and we just close our eyes, and the movies are projected in our minds, and that's how we watch movies.
I'm a little nervous what movies look like in 2069. I feel like, I don't know if will people be able to watch a 2-hour film in 2069. I don't know.
It seems like all modern movies now are 2.5 hours.
But then they are getting longer. Yeah.
Why are they getting so long? I hate
it's
it.
Like I feel like the mentality used to be that keep it short because then we can play the movie more and make more money.
Oh.
And now it's like, no, let's go longer. Like all of the big Marvel films and the Avatar, they're all 3 hours plus.
The Batman movie was
3 hours.
So long. Why? Cut it. I want 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm all about if the movie, I've always said, like, if the story is interesting and I'm into it, it's fine if it goes long. But usually I'm like, let's cut it down.
Not since Titanic have I been like, yes, this needs to be this long.
Yeah. Snowball Express would have been deadly at 2 hours.
Oh my God.
That was a very quick,
Deadly.
I think it was an hour 26, something like that. I think that was the right length.
Yeah. If it had been any longer, we would have fallen asleep. I was like, no.
All right. So our final segment, the one time we'll talk about Nancy Olson. So let's talk about what happened. So you got the book there, a front row seat to her life with the signature. It says what? To Bode?
Yeah.
Enjoy Bode. Nancy Olson Livingston. So
like, thanks, Nancy.
Was it October? I want to say it was October. I got an email from the American Cinematheque. I'm on their mailing list. I still just like once a month look and see what's going on. And they sent me an email. It only had the one event on the email. It said Nancy Olson in person. It has a memoir coming out in November. She will be doing a book signing and a Q&A before Sunset Boulevard at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica. And I read this email and I said, I'm going to go to that.
You're like,
because as I've talked about before on here, Sunset Boulevard is my favorite film. I think for me, it's like the one perfect movie. There's nothing I would change about it. And there are 4 actors in the movie, main actors. 3 of them died before we were born.
Wow.
All 3 were gone before we were born.
Jeez.
And then the 4th actress, Nancy Olson, is still with us in 2022, 2023.
She's 94 years old.
94 years old. She shot the film when she was 21 in 1949. It was her second film. And it was an extraordinary day getting to not only see her in person, but I got a chance to talk to her, get a picture with her. And she was very nice and shared amazing memories of her time making Sunset Boulevard. She had a 30 to 40 minute Q&A before the movie started. And was she just not just sharp as a whip?
Sharp
for 94. Sharp as a tack.
I mean, she was, I'm trying to find the picture. I should have had it pulled up of you guys, but she was, I mean, incredibly sharp, super witty. I mean, I was shocked at her,
her memories were so detailed.
Super chic. I mean, yeah, she really does have that like high glam of old Hollywood. I mean, she kind of still embodies that in a very, very, the word poise, like a lot of poise and clarity. And yeah, what was her stories that she told?
So things I didn't know that William Holden came to her, or she came to his dressing room or something one night, and he was seducing her into like having sex, and she ran out of there like, no, I'm not doing this.
Something that you do with your lead. I always suspected that co-stars have sex with each other while they're filming, just to like have that rapport and have that like sort of relationship that will, and like their spouses are like, well, this is just part of being an actor, and that you have sex with your co-star. I have long suspected that. So I mean, and then she said William Holden made a pass at her one night and she rejected it, and then he never tried it again. That's what she said. Right.
And she said she was basically cast in the movie because she was on the lot. She had just been signed to a contract like a year before. And so she was just on the lot, and Billy Wilder would bump into her, like going to lunch and things. And he just started talking to her and just immediately started to think like maybe this could be the right actress for that role in Sunset Boulevard. And she didn't know. Remember, she said, I was talking to him. I knew who he was, but I didn't know he was considering me for anything. We were just talking. And then later on, he cast her in Sunset Boulevard.
I mean, she really did have that Midwestern ingenue persona, and being smart, but also naive. And I mean, that's what he wanted. And she even said that she dressed herself because the
costume designer, Academy Award-winning costume designer Edith Head, tried to dress her up for the movie, and nothing looked good. They didn't like it. So he just said, but Wilder said, just wear your own clothes, and that's
Yeah.
what she wore to work every day.
In Sunset Boulevard. She's wearing her own outfit. She said, mentioned a Peter Pan collar. Okay, here's the picture of when you guys met. Check it out. She's looking great.
She looks so good.
She looks great. She was like telling us all sorts of funny stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it was just one of those things. It was just one of those things. I thought that time had passed. I mean, even when I was out there in LA and I was like, it'd be really cool if I could maybe meet her, because she was the only living person. And then I never saw an event or an opportunity. And then, I mean, I don't even know if I knew she was still with us, but I think I was pretty sure she was in her 90s. So I thought that has passed. Like, she's not going to do any events or anything.
Public appearance.
So this was that was pretty unheard of, I would say, for someone of that age to be out there just saying hi to fans and signing books and talking for half an hour before the, like, it was that would have been a lot on anyone. And to, you know, for someone in their mid 90s, I was really impressed with her stamina, and all of the stories she shared were so great. And so it was a cool event. And then getting to watch the movie again, that was like a nice print of the film. Yeah.
On the big screen. I mean, and the event was sold out. Everyone
was
super excited to see her. I mean, people were thrilled. It was all of the best film nerds of LA were there, including Brian.
Yeah. I told her, I said, I flew out here from Nevada to meet you. And she was, I think, really touched by that. She was really impressed by that.
I think she was. She was like, wow, okay. And they were like, yeah, this is my favorite film, and I've always wanted to meet you. And
so that was cool. And, you know, did you realize, like, we got there 40 minutes early, and it was a long line to meet her. We got up there, she signed our books, and I think 3 minutes later, they stopped it. They stopped the line. It was still 30 to 40 people deep.
Right.
And right at 2:00 on the dot, I think we walked up at 1:55. At 2:00 on the dot, they said, that's it. There will be signed copies of the book for purchase after the film, because she was leaving.
Yeah.
So I didn't even realize it, because I remember we were talking. I'm like, do you think they'll let everyone through? And you said probably, yeah. I mean, they'll and they didn't. So that would have been devastating if we had gotten there 10 minutes later. I don't think we would have made it.
Right. So we waited in that line for a while.
35 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that line was going all through the theater into the lobby.
Yeah.
And was going slow, because she really took her time and said hi and took pictures and talked to you and like made conversation. And so and I was like, no, are they going to start the movie late? No, they were like, we're starting this movie on time. We're ending the line. It's over.
So we lucked out in that regard. That would have been pretty devastating if we had been like 5 people back. Right. I might have said something. I might have said, I flew here from Nevada. Can I get up? I might have made a scene. I don't know.
But just started crying. Yeah. And been like, I flew here to be.
So I got to have that experience of meeting her. And now for the rest of my life, I got to meet someone who was a part of Sunset Boulevard. That's something I never thought would happen. So thank you for helping me with that, Katie. That was really fun.
It was a really fun
movie. And we got her book, which I should mention, I finished reading yesterday. It's called A Front Row Seat. It's 101 chapters, Katie. It's about 101 chapters. It's about 350 pages. There is not one sentence about Snowball Express.
Unbelievable.
She has chapters later in the book that are like 2-3 pages of just her meeting a famous person at a party.
Right.
She did not believe in having one chapter about a big, a big scale Disney Christmas release movie from 1972 starring Dean Jones, where they went and shot on location in Colorado. There was nothing. There was not one story she could have shared. Do you think she thought nobody cares about this movie? I'm not going to talk about it. Like, is that where she came down to not mentioning
Probably. Nothing interesting happened while filming it, and the movie wasn't that interesting, so I guess we're good,
Because she is like
nonstop name dropping.
Yeah.
Nonstop. name dropping. And it's like, that's what happens when you get to live to be 94. Then you can publish a book that just shit talks everybody and everyone in your life, and all the shade, you get to just lay it down, because mostly everyone's dead now. So you can just say what you want to say about your family and your parents and everybody close to you, and just lay it all out, which is, I mean, that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, her life is very interesting. I'm not saying that the other chapters aren't interesting. And I think a lot of the book I found, like, especially her life with her two husbands, both were creatives. The first one was Alan Lerner, who wrote My Fair Lady and Gigi, and had a really successful career in doing these musicals. And then she leaves him
for My Fair Lady.
She was a bit of a muse for one of the songs.
Yeah, like Grown Accustomed to Your Face.
Grown Accustomed to Your Face was Alan Lerner looking into Nancy Olson's eyes for a few minutes, and just all of a sudden that line came to him, and then he went and wrote the song.
And the book, the book for the musical, I think, is dedicated to Nancy. My Fair Lady, is dedicated to Nancy. And she mentioned in the book, like, after she got divorced, this other writer was pursuing her, and he was like, I know what you did for Alan. I need you to do that for me. I need a hit.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, get a grip, guy. And she sent him packing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty funny but she was a supportive, nurturing person, it seems like. And
she had a run-in with some people, like she talks later in the book about hanging out with the Beatles.
Oh, I didn't get that part yet.
Because her second husband, Alan Livingston, he like managed different like bands and groups and things. Like he worked in music for many years. And there's a part in the book where he comes to her with a new single from across the ocean,
across the pond,
and it was I Want to Hold Your Hand, and he played it for Nancy, and he's like, what do you think? Do you think I should maybe take this group on? And she said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No. And he proceeded to sign them anyway, and that turned out to be a good choice. And Nancy
was wrong about the Beatles.
And she said, like, in this chapter, she's like, yeah, I was wrong about that. But I have to be honest, that was my reaction to that song at the moment.
She's not really like a pop artist, though. She was really more classical, and she did have a really big like musical background in terms of like musical theater and concert performing and concert pianist and stuff. So I mean, that was her background.
Yeah.
I can see how she'd be like, what the hell is this pop trash?
There's a chapter where, like, because her husband had signed them, there was some fundraiser they did at Nancy Olson's mother's backyard where the Beatles came, and it was like chaos, and people were like descending on the house and helicopters. And it was like, she said it was like a very memorable day of like just like the fandom of this for this group, which I don't know if she even realized until that moment.
Right, and how big they were.
So, and it's just, and there's there's stories about her marriage and her divorce and her having kids, and talks about like everything. Like she doesn't leave anything off the table except Snowball Express.
Honestly, I mean, I'm only halfway through the book, but her career, she seemed like she was just like, oh God, okay, I'm gonna do this movie because it'll get me away from my personal life, which is a mess right now.
Right.
So I'm so happy to have this job to focus on right now.
Yeah.
Because my personal life is like falling apart. And she would often say that. She's like, oh, I got a gig for the summer. It's perfect. My girls can come stay with me. I can work. It was like working wasn't her passion, really.
Yeah, if you look at her IMDb, so from 1949 to 1953, she's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films. So she starts strong. She starts with a lot of roles, and then by the mid 50s, it tapers off because she becomes a mom.
Good.
And there's a part in the book, I think it was in the first half, where she called her agent or something and said, "Please stop submitting me for roles. I don't want to act anymore."
Right.
Like she said, "I'm done."
And then, but she did Broadway plays too.
She did plays,
live Broadway, and I mean that's not easy.
Yeah, and so most of her credits for the rest of the 50s is TV, outside of like a couple films, and then she comes back. Her big movies of the 60s, she comes back for 3 Disney movies, starting with Pollyanna, and those we always pick our 3 favorites. I mean, you might be surprised to learn that my favorite film of hers is Sunset Boulevard.
What? What? It's not
But if
Snowball Express.
if it's not,
Snowball Express has eclipsed
Shocker.
Sunset Boulevard.
but if I had to pick the other two, it'd be Pollyanna and The Absent-Minded Professor. Those are pretty charming Disney comedies of the early 60s when Walt is still around. The budgets are bigger for like Pollyanna. Like if you watch that movie, like the costume design, the cinematography, it's a real deal big movie.
Huge budget.
Yeah, it's like Mary Poppins era where they're really like beautiful looking movies with lots of great production design and art direction and all that stuff.
I might have seen that movie. She said she did with John Wayne. Because
she talked about that.
My dad. And she said it was like she didn't want to do it because it was like super critical of the Polynesian people and communism. Like it was a really political right-wing sort of stance, which is John Wayne was kind of known for.
Yeah.
But she did it anyway because she was having a hard time with her marriage. And John Wayne was kind of like was very supportive to her and a cool guy to work with, apparently.
Yeah, that's called Big Jim McLean from 1952. Right. I'm most intrigued by, she said, and she talked about in the book, like she made other films with William Holden from Sunset Boulevard. Those are the ones I'd be interested in seeing, just to see them on screen together again would be cool. Even if the movie's not great, it'd be fun to see them again. And then after that, I mean, she's in a couple more films of the 60s, and then she's in Snowball Express. The other movie I'm intrigued by is 1975. She's in an airport sequel called Airport 1975, which is the final film appearance of Gloria Swanson from Sunset Boulevard. I'm like, do they have a scene together?
They have movie? Airport. I don't know what that is.
So 1970, Katie, there's a movie comes out called Airport, and it kind of starts the genre of like disaster movies of the whole decade.
Oh,
it's like an airport disaster movie kind of a thing.
It makes me think of Airplane, the comedy.
Yeah, which is a spoof of the airport films.
Oh, okay.
So in the 70s, there were 4 airport movies because they were so popular. The third one, no, it's the second one, is called Airport 1975. Nancy Olson plays Mrs. Abbott, and it's the final film appearance of Gloria Swanson. Wow. I did not realize that they're both in that movie. So I'm like, did they share a scene in that movie? I need to watch that. So that'd be fun.
And then in her book, she mentions how she makes an emergency landing on a plane full of celebrities. Elizabeth Taylor was on the plane.
The plane went down.
And the plane went down, had an emergency landing, and then she took trains for like a few years after that until she was like, I gotta get back up.
Didn't she say like the weather was such that she didn't want to get on the plane, and she was kind of like almost forced onto it, like she was like, okay, I guess, and then it like went down and could have crashed. Like they got lucky.
Yeah, and they like landed in the middle of a freeway and they're still in danger, and she was like, my mink coat, I left my new mink coat on the plane. I gotta go back and get it.
Her last like famous film appearance, like not a famous movie, but it's a movie that means a lot in the world of like LGBTQ content, is 1982's Making Love. It was one of the first studio movies about a gay couple that takes it seriously. It's not like a joke. It's like about I think the main character is a man. He's married to a woman, but he's secretly gay, and he has a relationship with a man on the side. And it was kind of promoted as like the first like adult gay drama from 82. She is in that movie. I've never seen it. I've been meaning to see it. I don't know why it's passed me by, but she plays a role in that named Christine. So Nancy Olson is in the gay movie. What's that? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wholesome Olson.
Wholesome Olson.
And then after that, she's in a couple little things. She has an uncredited role in Flubber as Ford's secretary.
Okay.
She's
Flubber is real.
She's in one episode of Big Love. And then her last screen appearance is a movie called Dumbbells from 2014, which looks like a really dumb, like R-rated teen comedy. I'm like, why is she in this movie? Her son wrote and directed it.
Oh.
And that explains it all. Like, why would she take a role in this like dumb teen comedy when she's clearly been retired for many decades? Oh, her son made it.
She should do another movie. What would you cast her in a movie now? Like, I don't know.
I think The Making of Sunset Boulevard would be an interesting film. There's a lot of cool tales behind the scenes, like something about like that era. So I'd cast her as like I don't know, much older secretary. I don't know.
Once you get old, you're just the old secretary. You don't get any other roles. I'll play the mom or the old secretary.
I'll have her be the grandmother, great
Great.
grandmother. She could play a grandmother. Doesn't have to be great grandmother.
That's true.
But
you could be
so
the sexy older woman meeting a hot 20-year-old date.
You would have. She has a chapter or two dedicated to talking about her entering the world of Disney. You'd think there would have been a mention there of, she mentioned Son of Flubber once around that time in the book, but she does not. I mean, it's a decade later. She's in Snowball Express.
The words Snowball Express do not appear at all in this book.
The word. So I never saw it. I looked. There is an index in the back, and I looked. I'm like, maybe there was a quick reference, and there's not. It's not there. So unless they forgot to put it in the index, and I just glazed over it in a paragraph, I did not see one mention of it. I think this movie is worthy of a chapter. If you're going to have 101 chapters, I think it's worthy of a page and a half, like to just talk about the making of it.
I know she
the
has
Disney
like
movie.
A chapter of meeting Marilyn Monroe and at a party, but she doesn't have a chapter on this. On like,
but again, she doesn't talk about all the films. She doesn't talk about Airport 75. She doesn't talk about Making Love. Like, she doesn't talk about Big Love from 2010. Like, that could have been a chapter. Like, how'd you get a part of that show?
Yeah,
it's like she wasn't that interested in film and TV acting. Like, that doesn't seem to be the sense I got from reading her book. Was like, this was something that I was interested in as a young girl, and then by the time I became a mom, family was everything, and I didn't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely that was the sense. Like, the work, the movies, they were just jobs.
Yeah, they were just jobs. So I think she's writing her memoir in her early 90s, and she's not sitting there like, oh, I need to talk about every film I made. I don't think that was her intention. I think once we get to past the Disney movies of the 60s, I don't think she cares about the other stuff she did. That wasn't what was important to her in that time of her life. It was about family and her marriage, and that's kind of what she gives attention to.
She cares about people. Like, she cares about people and the people she met, and the like creative energy of New York and LA at the time, and like being around these creatives and their creative energy and genius that would come out in other ways, but then also had pretty terrible interpersonal, skills. And like working with geniuses and working with creatives, they have a lot of personal issues sometimes, and that's kind of, but she's like, but I love that complexity about people. Like, that's what she is interested in, and you can tell in her book that is what she kind of lives for.
And get ready for the very end. She doesn't know how to end the book,
right?
Same way I don't know how to end this episode. Twice at the end of the book, she's like, in uppercase, I don't know how to finish this, and then proceeds to write 3 more pages, and then 2 more chapters, and then the last chapter, she's like, still don't know. It's very funny, like the way it ends. It doesn't have like, I don't know how much of an editor was really like honing in all the stuff in her book. I was like, okay, we're just shouting now about how you don't know how to end.
She gets to shouting. I'm not there yet.
That's like around chapter 97. So just get ready. But anyway, it was a thrill to meet Nancy Olson, one of the 4 stars of my favorite film, Sunset Boulevard. I will cherish that memory forever. Katie, thank you for being a part of that. That was a really fun weekend we had, where we also went to the Academy Museum and was fantastic.
Yes, we did. We went to the Academy Award Museum, and I have footage here of Brian. Where is it?
You pushed me into that. I was like, that seems kind of funky. I don't know. And you were like, let's do it. Let's do the Oscar experience. And it was really cool. I thought it was gonna hold a little plastic statue, and it was a real Oscar. Look at me. I'm so happy. I'm just like, I'm holding a real Academy Award here, and it's very heavy. It's heavy. I was not expecting it to be that heavy. I knew it was kind of heavy. And now I'm giving my thank you. Thank you for this. I really worked hard.
I deserve this.
This is for my YouTube channel. They gave me a special Oscar for all of the research I do on a weekly basis.
Exactly.
Snowball Express, Katie, we did it.
We did it. I watched it. We talked about it.
This is kind of like a bittersweet moment because this is the last. So I have one more 72 episode to record. We're talking the Oscars after a year plus, Katie. This is the last 72 standard episode.
Wow.
We're moving on in January to 73.
What a
so
year.
That was fun. What a way to go out on Snowball Express.
Well, I mean, that you got to meet Nancy Olson.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was pretty amazing. And that is, that's when you live in LA, you get to do cool stuff like that. Yeah. That is, and it mentions in our book that she lives on Alpine Avenue in Beverly Hills. And I drive down Alpine every day to get.
You drive by her house every day.
I think I must. I mean, I don't know on which block she lives, but it's like big ass mansions that are dark. That I'm like, who is living in these? Like, who can afford this? And it's, it's old people, old Hollywood people, I guess. It's not young people.
I would love it if Nancy Olson's house she's in right now has the feeling of the house in Sunset Boulevard, where you just see Nancy's picture all over the place, 7 bathrooms, all with sunken tubs and all of that good stuff.
It's not as creepy and like dilapidated.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. It's probably not that creepy. Nancy Olson keeps it clean.
Keeps it clean. She keeps it tight.
But anyway, Katie, as we wrap up here talking Snowball Express and our wonderful meeting with Nancy Olson, anything you'd like to promote or tell our listeners where they can find you online?
Well, you can find me online on Instagram at something Bode. I'm an artist. I do lots of art and design. I do your covers for your books.
Yeah.
And,
what else did you design for me?
Your logo.
My logo. Katie did the logo for Film at 50. That's Katie. We see it. I've been looking at that logo every week since middle of 2020, and boy, it's fantastic.
It's a good logo. I like that one. That one turned out good. And I have some paintings behind me here, and making art and doing stuff. Check me out.
Yeah, no, we will absolutely. Katie Bode, fantastic artist. If you need something done, reach out to Katie.
Yeah, DM me, man.
He'll only charge you a few grand. It'll be worth it.
That's right. It'll be perfect.
Maybe if you say me, maybe she'll keep her rate down a little. Like maybe she'll help you.
I mean, yeah, a friend rate. I give you the friend rate.
The friend rate.
The friend rate. But you have to come to town and take me all over town.
Yeah.
Take me out to
wine
dinner.
And dine, Katie Bode.
Wine and dine me, yes.
You'll spend a few grand on her whining and dining, and then she'll give you a friend's rate. All right, Katie, thanks for being here. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Check out my YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.